Oh my goodness. I'm trying to do live
Oh
on Twitch,
no.
but I don't know how to
Come
do it.
on.
Hi, I'm Daniel Likis, and welcome to Movie 101 Review. And as usual, we're having a Safa Sunday.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Movies 101 Review. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here, whatever time zone you're in, whether it is morning, afternoon, evening, or night. We are so glad to see you today, to have your smiling faces and perked up ears while we talk about movies. I'm Safa Burnell. I am a novelist, but also a former filmmaker who absolutely loves film.
Yes, we love movies, people. And last week, or last episode, I should say, we talked about the famous Deadpool and Wolverine. Highly recommended, people. If you don't watch yet,
Oh,
please
yeah.
do watch.
So good. So
So
good. I want to see it
good, so
again.
good. So, Miss Bernal, if you give five adjectives of Deadpool and Wolverine, what are they?
Oh, chaotic, nostalgic, hilarious,
Hilarious.
uncouth,
Yes.
and bloody.
Yes. Oh my
Love it.
God.
So good. It
Bloody.
is hilarious, but it is that sort of uncouth dark humor. So if you're okay with something that's more for the adults in the room and not for children, then it's a fabulous movie and you're okay with a bit of gore. And two, the cameos they had, the people they had in it, like Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Garner, Channing Tatum, as well as Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. It's just fantastic. Oh my goodness, it was just so much fun.
Yes.
So,
I hope there will be a part two. Oh.
they've made over $1 billion in their first week. I'm fairly certain.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
hoping we can cross our fingers and our toes. But come on,
Correct.
Ryan, let's
Yes.
go. Let's
Let's
start
do
going over that
this.
script.
Again, let's give them a big hand. Thank you so much for producing a good quality movie. I hope you will continue doing this to entertain us. So, Miss Bernal, what we gonna talk about today?
Ooh, we are going to talk about some of the best thrillers in film
Thriller.
history. We're going back to 1990 to The Hunt for Red October. We are going to 2002 with The Sum of All Fears. We are going to talk about political thrillers and a little bit of spy versus spy action. And I cannot be more thrilled.
For sure. So, what the elements make a great political thriller movie?
The first and number one is tension. You
Mm,
have to have tension. You have to have that ticking clock. Something like The Hunt for Red October, it doesn't work without that fear of the Red October starting a war. It doesn't work without that ticking clock of what are they doing? Where are they going? How long is it going to take this submarine to get to the waters around the United States? You've got that clock, you've got that urgency, that mixture between urgency and then both political tension, but also personal tension. And so the characters have to have a stake in the game. They can't just be detached. They have to actually want to have a resolution or they have to want certain things to happen. So you get that very personal kind of jousting match, while at the same time, the entire battlefield is just filled with chaos. So that is, I would say, the number one part of political thrillers and thrillers that causes them to be just so delicious.
delicious to bite. Speaking of deliciousness, I want to plug in my Food 101 on our fourth season. People, please do listen. Food 101 with Chef Alessandro Juan, the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. I think our latest episode we talk about dessert. No,
Mm.
not dessert. Yeah, cold soup of Italian cuisine, people. So
Ooh.
please do listen. So, Miss Bernal, how important is pacing in a political thriller?
Mm. Without proper pacing, you have nothing.
Yes.
The tension just completely falls apart. So, in order for tension to reign supreme, in order for there to be enough to really kind of grip onto, you've got to make sure that you're giving certain moments space. Like with the Hunt for Red October, when we're actually on the submarine itself and we've got Marco Ramius and his crew talking about, leaving the Soviet Union, they're defecting. We know from Marco Ramius's point of view, played by Sean Connery, that he wants to defect to the United States. And so we have that kind of thing, but we're allowed to have moments where they're a little bit slower, they're a little bit softer with Ramius and his crew, where he gets to actually emote what his character needs, what his character wants, where is his character's call to action, what is going on there. And you're able to see how the crew is responding to certain things. And without those scenes with Sean Connery and Scott Glenn and some of the others that are just, incredible, like Sam Neill as Captain Borden, without those kinds of moments, you lose a lot of the heart. So they, being a little bit slower paced, work well with Alec Baldwin's Jack Ryan as he's, getting thrown around in a helicopter and trying to get to Mancuso's submarine and all these other things, which are a little bit more quick and frenetic and worried and oh my goodness, and let's go and yikes. And then you have those like panic moments because the Americans like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Are they about to, are they about to come to the US and launch some nukes? Whereas Jack Ryan's like, I have a theory that he's trying to defect. And you've got to have those faster moments to make the slower ones kind of build more of that character and build more of that worry about how is this going to take place. There's so many things that could go wrong. If even one of these things do go wrong, the entire House of Cards falls apart and war declared again.
Yes.
So in order for the emotion and the tension to really have a life, you have to have that sense of pacing. You have to have those slower moments going into faster moments, going into slower again. And it has to be a dial. It's like a mountain range. It's not, one solid line going like this, because that can sometimes get a little bit stale. We will see a natural progression kind of upward in a good well-paced movie, because the stakes are raised. Oh, there's more tension. Oh no, the stakes are raised again. Okay, there's more tension. Maybe there's a somewhat of a battle. It doesn't need to be a gunfire battle. It can just be a battle of wills somewhere in there that again kind of raises the stakes. And after that battle, there's a little bit of a lull so we can recover a little bit. And then once you allow the audience to recover just a little, then you can ramp the tension up again and they'll be with you. But if you keep just yelling at them the whole time, this is something that I've seen in some movies where the tension is just a scream in the entire thing. It's the same thing with a novelist who's like, oh, I'm just going to make it the most intense thing ever. Well, you can't make something the most intense thing ever without reining in a little bit in some places, because otherwise people just shut down. So you've got to have those levels. You've got to have those waves. And something like The Hunt for Red October is a master of that. Again, The Sum of All Fears is also a master at that. Both of them Tom Clancy books, which were made into movies. Both of them just absolutely solid.
Solid people. I love Sean Connery. So, do you think, Miss Bernal, who will be the next Sean Connery for this generation?
Oh. Oh.
I'll say the topic.
I mean, Hugh Jackman does quite well. I know we just talked about Deadpool and Wolverine, but well, Hugh Jackman has range. And that's one thing I really love about Hugh Jackman as an actor. Not going to mention anything about personal life because that's over there. But as somebody who fulfills a role, he's musical, he can sing, he can dance, he's done tons of musical theater. He's also able to do historical reenactments and kind of historical fiction, while at the same time being able to go, come on, come at me, bub, with Wolverine. So I love Hugh Jackman for his range. I think as he gets older, I'm seeing a little bit of that Sean Connery gravitas in Brad Pitt. Just a
Yes,
little. Just a
just a
little
little.
bit in Brad Pitt. Um, and there's a certain look that as he ages, he's beginning to get. I'm going, okay, I recognize this. I recognize this a little. I mean, he's still got his hair, so that's one thing for him that Sean Connery didn't have. But I'm seeing a bit of that gravitas there. Um, Gosh, goodness, who else could be that sort of presence? Because Sean Connery had that sense of gravitas. He had that sense
Yes,
of kind of the event of things.
like Liam
Well,
Neeson, right? Liam
Yeah.
Neeson,
Liam, the
Sean
Taken
Connery.
series,
Mm,
Liam Neeson's got some chops. He definitely has the chops. And I mean, I've loved Liam Neeson as an actor since I was a child.
yes,
Being taken by my big brother, which was a really like, oh my gosh, I get to go to a movie with my big brother and his friends. This is the best day of my life. And we went out and saw Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
yes.
And there's Qui-Gon Jinn. And it's one of my biggest movie memories because I was just this little kid and I was like, please let me go, please, 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 please. And then finally my brother was like, okay, fine, you can come, but be cool. Don't be stupid because my friends are there. Oh, I promise, I promise, I promise. And we were just like enraptured by the screen. I'm holding my popcorn like, this is the best day of my life. And then there's Qui-Gon Jinn being awesome, and that was my introduction to Liam Neeson, and he's got a fond place in my heart ever since.
Yes.
Just incredible actor, and according to the reports that I've been able to see, incredible guy. So,
Otherwise, if
yeah.
Neon lesson, it must be good, people.
Yes.
It must be good. So, Miss Bernal, how role does suspense play in keeping the audience engaged?
It's that little twitch of the breath when you're waiting to see what's going to happen. It's that catch before the person walks into a room that is probably crowded. It's, that locking of eyes between characters when you're trying to figure out, are they actually going to fight or are they going to ask for help? And in order for, again, the tension of a good thriller to really enliven people, you have to be able to kind of fear that things will go wrong. The stakes have to feel real too. And this is another thing that I find in some more modern movies that we've been seeing. When a character is too overpowered, when they're too OP, when they're too good and they're too talented and they're too this and they're too that and they can do too many things, all of a sudden, all the stakes are arbitrary. And then suspense is lost. If you have Superman going after, just normal, everyday, gun toting bank robbers, you know that the tension's not coming from Superman. It's
Yes.
just, the tension's coming from the man whose wife and daughter are curled up behind a desk, terrified, and he's thinking, I think I can do it. I think I can rush him. Like, that's where the tension lies. The tension, the suspense lies not in this Superman figure. It lies in the everyday man and father who's like, I think I can do it, but the guy's going to get shot down before he even tries. So you need to have that sense of potential danger that's actually real in order for something to be suspenseful. And we've seen in certain movies, I'm not going to name any names, Marvel,
Yes. Wow.
where there's no tension at all because that the superheroes are just so super that, okay, well, you're just going to save the universe. Like, I'm not going to feel tension over that. I'm not going to feel suspense because there is no suspense. It's fake. So the trick, in my perspective, as a screenwriter and as a writer, is building suspense by having your characters be strong, but also have vulnerabilities to exploit. And those vulnerabilities can't be too vulnerable. Like all of a sudden you have a glass cannon syndrome. You're like, oh man, here we go. but you've got to play in the middle between what makes those characters vulnerable, what the stakes are, and how they could go wrong, and what makes them strong. And so, with a figure like Jack Ryan in The Hunt for Red October, you have this CIA analyst basically who's like, I think this dude is trying to defect. And he's putting so much on the line. He's getting flown in a helicopter to a nuclear submarine in the middle of the ocean. He's doing all of these crazy things that he's like, I hate flying. What am I doing? Oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm just a paper pusher. Like, I don't know how to do this. And then you've got all of these like issues with this guy, but at the same time, he's willing to put it all on because he has a belief in something. He has a belief that if he talks to Marco Ramius, he can assume that this is exactly what's going to happen. They're not going to attack the United States, they're going to join it. And so that suspense, whether or not he's right, well, we know he's right. So the tension in The Hunt for October doesn't come from, oh, is he right or isn't he? Like, what's going to happen? Is Marco Ramius trying to defect? Well, we know from the very first frickin' scene, Marco Ramius is trying to defect. It's like, we know this. Like,
Yes.
we know that that's what's going to happen. But the tension comes from all of these outside forces, like Scott Glenn's Bart Mancuso, the skipper of the American submarine, and, Captain Davenport and a bunch of other figures. That there's tons of tension around it because various other people just want the Red October to go down. The Russians are like, kill it, kill it, get it,
No.
while at the same time the Americans are like, just shoot him, like, just shoot, like, what the heck, like, this is too dangerous, we can't let this happen. So the suspense comes from whether or not Jack Ryan and Marco Ramius can actually get into a conversation with each other. And that's intense, especially with all the other chess pieces on the board. And it's just amazing. And I love it. And I probably watched this movie like 50 times because when I was a kid, my mom would put it on almost every week for a while. And
Movie of the month.
it really, kudos to my mother. She had myself and my older brother. And what does she do as, single mom taking care of her parents and her two kids? What does she do when she finds out that my brother and I are like, oh, war dramas, ooh, history, ooh, cool? She goes, let's watch spy movies. It's like, yes. Thanks, Mom.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
inspiring us. So, how do you balance action and dialogue in a thriller movie?
You have the important conversations happening when people can actually hear them.
Yes.
There are certain things where you can have, important conversations happening in the middle of a battle at a yell, but I personally find that they're more effective when those conversations are happening where the words themselves and the dialogue itself is the battle. And so there's firefights all around. All these things are going on. There's explosions, there's the Russian soldiers, just the regular naval NCOs for the Russian submarine, thinking that their captain is scuttling the ship for the pride of Russia, all these different things. You've got, all of this just incredible tension and action. But when it comes to the important conversations, the actors are allowed to perform to such an intensity that even though it's just two people talking, it is just as intense. And I
Yeah.
love that kind of conversation. Like, yes, you can have a conversation in the middle of a firefight. You can have effective things said, and that's totally fine. But with thrillers that I actually really just like dive into, and I'm like, this is so awesome. It's more about the two actors jousting. It's more about them showing their skill. And that's where you need to have quite skilled actors with nuance and the ability to perform just incredibly well, because they need to be able to have the on-screen chemistry, to have that conversation where it feels tense, where you can feel it and you're like, oh my gosh, what they're going to say, like, come on, just say it, come on, just say it. And I think too that side of a thriller, that sense that a lot of people get when like, just say it. Come on, just say it. Come on, Marco, just say it. Just come on, just let them know you want to defect. You don't want to, like just say it. It's exactly the same tension flipped on its head that they have in romances.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's just one of them's a political thriller with bombs are involved, and the other one's whether or not you're going to end up having a character running to the airport gate to stop the person from leaving in time. It's
Yes.
it's still the same coin, even if it's the other side of it. Um, so I would say for me, when you get talented actors having just that incredible conversation, it's as tense as a battle scene, and yet it's
Yes, I
quiet.
agree.
Oh, so good.
I
So good.
agree, Miss Burnell. Speaking of intense, I please invite you to listen to my intense interview with Mr. Inam Inamula on abstract essay, world-renowned landscape artist known for his texture using palette and knife on heavy canvas. Yeah, Mr. Inam exhibited around the world and has impressive list of collectors. His art hangs on famous buildings in many large cities such as Carnegie Hall in New York. So please do listen to my latest episode of Abstract Essay on my fourth season, people, with Mr. Inemula. So, Miss Burnell, can you please plug your books, upcoming books?
All right,
Agape
everybody.
Maki.
If you like tension, like
Lots
tension,
of
if you like
tension.
characters who are kind of going
Yes.
at it, and you like battle scenes, if you like both battle scenes and very emotional story arcs between characters, then you will likely love my work. I write cyberpunk and I write myth punk books. So both of those genres are pretty punky. And they are also a lot of fun. I mix action with strong characterization. And my upcoming books, Gunungagap, Agape Maki, and Emptiness at the Center are coming out first in the next few months, Gunungagap, and then into next year. They are both of them are parts of series. If you want to read the other books in the series, my Mythpunk series starts with Char and Dash, and Son of Abel, and Book of Revels, and my Cyberpunk series starts with Neon Lieben. And if you like super soldiers, if you like AI, not AI written or generated, but an AI who decides to say, I think I'm going to be the mother of the human race and tries to take over all the technology of the world, then you'll like to read Neon Lieben. And if you want to see what Ares and Aphrodite are doing after thousands of years on Earth, then yeah, the Judge of Mystic Saga is definitely where it's at. So you can find my books at saphaburnell.com. That is SAPHABURNELL.com. Or you can search Sapha Burnell basically anywhere books are sold and get yourself a copy, either digital or print, of all my books. And if you are somebody who's like, that's great, I would love to read those books, kind of not in the budget right now, I please encourage you to go to your local public library. And if my books are not currently in your local public library, please request them. Libraries buy books. They love to know what their readers want to read. And that is a fantastic way to provide for both making sure that my books get more of an audience and to make sure that libraries stay alive, which is a fantastic thing. And I love my local public library.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Miss Burnell, for sharing your talents to the world. We hope people will support you. Please do support Miss Papa Burnell, because if you support her, more books to come. We're looking forward for Ginunga Gap and
Oh, it's
Agape
gonna be so good.
Make.
It's gonna be
So
so
to sum
good.
up our yes, to sum up our topic for today, Miss Bernal, how does setting contribute the atmosphere of a political thriller?
Definitely, you need to have something that feels a little familiar so that people don't have to spend a whole lot of time figuring out the world. And this is important. Actually, it's more important than you might think when it comes to political thrillers, because with something like science fiction or fantasy, you're building a world. around people. And part of the joy of science fiction and fantasy is discovering the world built. But with a thriller or a story that has a lot of the aspects of a thriller, you cannot spend the same amount of time trying to world build that you would in something like a fantasy movie. You have to have something familiar enough that people can be like, okay, yeah, Cold War, I get it, and dive in. You don't have to explain why there's tension between the USSR and the United States of America in the 1980s. You don't have to explain that. People understand because, for the most part, they understand what the Cold War was and the sheer amount of fear and tension that was going on between both sides. And so having a setting where it's familiar enough for people to be like, I'm with you. Okay, I got it. It is a deal breaker when it comes to catching people up as quickly as possible. So instead of spending time trying to kind of prove your theory, to prove the thesis of the movie, you're spending more time with the characters and people are like, I get it. Okay, here we go. It's the same thing where when you have something set in a setting like New York, London, Paris, Vancouver, Los Angeles, most more the big ones like London and New York and Los Angeles. When you have a movie set in those places, there's only a very few things you have to do for people to understand where you are. And once they understand where you are, they're like, okay, yeah, you're in London. I get it. Or, oh, yeah, it's New York. So New York is like this. And the traffic's going to be terrible. And there's going to be hot dog stands and on the corners. And you can get a cup of coffee with that kind of Grecian little thing on the side, of the cup. You kind of have a sense of place already in your head because we see it so much from North American cinema and North American TV. Same thing with Los Angeles. You have, the beach and the palm trees, and you have Rodeo Drive, and you have certain things that people are like, okay, you're in LA. I get it. I understand the scene. You all of a sudden put that same thriller into Bergen in Norway. There are things
Yes.
you're going to have to explain. There is stuff that's going to take away from the pacing, that's going to take away from the sort of emotion of the movie in order for you to explain why this tension matters and where it came from. So you definitely need that sense of setting. Like if I put a movie, well, actually, like I put the story Whiskey and Sinner's Blood, which is the novella that I wrote this year, that I published this past year. Whiskey and Sinner's Blood is a novella that I wrote specifically to turn into a movie. Because I knew, this more intimate novella written, housewife in 1990s Ireland, the Republic of, her and her husband ended up fleeing Northern Ireland to come to Southern Ireland, to the Republic. And they've got a son. And what happens when she finds out her husband has sold their son, sold the Fairy Queen? Obviously it's still myth punk and things like that. There's still, fantasy involved. But, the second that I put it in Ireland in the 1990s, I put it in a place with preloaded tension. Especially when you find a little bit more about what, Colm was doing before they got married, what Colm was doing when they got married, when, their son was a little boy, and then why did they have to flee, not just leave, but flee, one place or the other. You've got a preloaded set there for a specific reason, because when you put something in that space, a place that has historical value, that not only does it remind people of that historical value, but it also puts people in a mind of, okay, I understand this, and this. If that person is the sort of ideal watcher, ideal reader, somebody who, is a lover of that genre and a lover of that place, they'll understand. And so you can spend more time on the characters and more time on the tension than you have to otherwise. And so it means that setting itself is just hugely important. It is a character in and of itself. It is the source of a lot of tension in a political thriller, especially. Whereas in other genres, it might not necessarily be, or you might have to take more time away from the tension itself in order to explain yourself. And I don't want to have to spend time in exposition in a political thriller. I want to dive in and be like, 1984, the Soviet Union's best submarine captain violates orders and heads for the U.S. Done. Let's go.
Done. Let's do it.
Go.
As Miss Barno said, a political thriller is a genre of fiction that blends suspense, intrigue, and high stakes of political drama. These movies typically revolve around power struggles, government corruption, espionage, or international conflict. So, Miss Bernal, thank you for your time.
Thank you for yours. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Bodyguard people, see you soon.